to this Financial Mail and Redzone live webcast, this morning titled The Crossline of Culture and Brand Communications. In 2021, more than ever, brands are weighing in on trending topics and chasing what they call social currency. But is it a choice or does this need to be a given? This morning, we're looking at how modern day culture drives brand communications and the demand on agencies and brands, the entire advertising industry, to connect to culture if they want to engage meaningfully with their consumers. A group of people that know all about engaging meaningfully with consumers this morning. Joining us is Executive for Smart Home and Content at Telkom, Wanda Mkhize, Head of Marketing at Tyme Bank, Appie, Head of Digital and Content at Wavemaker SA, Shaun Frazao, and Head of Brand Marketing at Momentum, Nsubuga-Mukasa. And they're going to empower us with new insights to propel your brand's ascension into the 2021 zeitgeist. Don't forget, we are live, which means you can drop questions in the chat on the Arena Events platform. Let's get straight into it. Wanda, I have a big question for you. How is modern day culture driving brand communications? What are we even asking this morning, really?
So the use of technology and digital marketing, such as social media, has allowed us to have more accessibility through to our customers. So from a brand perspective, it also means that we're becoming a little bit more authentic around our communication, providing more one-to-one type of communication with our customers rather than what we traditionally used to have, a one-to-many. So rather than speaking at our customers, we're rather having a real engagement. And in that way, it really allows for that authentic conversation to come through, because you need to ensure the words, your actions are truly coming through in what you communicate out there as well.
Shaun, it's become a bit of a curse word in advertising and marketing, this word authentic, but there is no other word for it. Specifically applying a digital lens to it. When it comes to digital strategy, there's a lot of talk around authentic content, authenticity from brands. But how do they really ensure authenticity when they always want to be selling you something? So I'm here, I'm with you, I'm going through COVID-19, but you know what? I actually really think that you should use this product and service that I have?
Well, I think it's about consistency, and I think we'll touch on it. I think throughout the chat today around moving from maybe a product-centric to consumer-centric approach. But it all starts with authenticity. And we know the digital environment is dynamic and is rapidly changing, and brands want to respond to this. They want to be involved in this conversation. But a big mistake that a lot of brands make is to not be consistent. And that is consistent in terms of your broader channel strategy. What you do on social and on digital can't be a different tone from what you take on other channels, whether that's above the line or even through to your call center. There needs to be consistency there. But I think it's also important here is consistency in terms of your values and your principles as a brand. We often see now, especially when we look at movements such as Me Too, Black Lives Matter, a lot of conversation around diversity and inclusion, brands who really want to be part of this in an authentic way and speak to this and respond to this. And the problem is that they don't have their own house in order. You can't speak about diversity and inclusion if diversity and inclusion isn't implemented in your management at your company. So it's about that consistency. And as soon as you have that consistency, then the rest is pretty easy. Then it's easy to have real and honest conversations. It's easy to tell stories, to connect with consumers, but you have to be consistent and you have to have your house in order when it comes to that.
Charlotte, all brands want to be relevant. But what Shaun's saying here is that in order to be relevant and in order to be authentic through that sort of relevance, you need to have your own house in order. From a sort of relevance perspective, is it a case of looking inward first before looking outward as a brand?
Before I answer that, Arye, I want to admit that I chuckled at that question of authenticity, because it is the buzzword. And consumers and clients do ask us all the time, how can you sell to me and still be authentic? So it's that conundrum that as marketers we all face globally. It's not a South African challenge. But to your point about being a relevant brand, I just want to echo what we just heard about being consistent and having your house in order. I am a woman. I'm stating the obvious. I head up the Momentum brand marketing team, and people are starting to see the shift. In fact, our own clients are saying that we're starting to sound more nurturing than 10 years ago. We are, and they've asked, have you overhauled the team? Are there more women in the team? And a little bit of that is true. We haven't overhauled anything, but the injection of feminine energy is starting to push out to the market, admittedly so. But at the same time, it's just in terms of getting your house in order. As women, we want to talk about the things that are important to us as businesswomen, as women living in this ecosystem, such as gender-based violence. But we haven't been overt in it because we haven't gotten our own house in order. And so I do want to appreciate the conversation around, fix your own house first. Or sometimes it's not even about fixing your own house. Understand the narrative and the human truths that underpin the story that you want to tell, so that you come across as credible when you do talk about gender-based violence. And your employees need to be the ones to rally around you and say, yes, in our house, we are talking about economic abuse. In our house, we are talking about physical abuse. In our house, we are talking about mental abuse, so that when you do go out to market, the foot soldiers that are in your business, whether it's twofold, 15,000-fold like Momentum, are able to garner and give testimony, real, raw, authentic testimony to say, you do have a right to contribute to that conversation that is gender-based violence. And that's just an example of many other conversations that we as marketers need to, be mindful of before we say we're putting up our hands, because it's easy to donate money, but to get into that conversation and to authentically participate and contribute consistently in a meaningful and relevant manner is something else. And I think we just need to add our smarts to it. But besides adding our smarts to it and all the marketing jargon that we are so well affair with, is to make sure that ourselves, we as women, we as men, can authentically plug into that conversation as a brand, first of all, and then as people, and then vice versa, as people, and then as a brand.
Linda, let's pick up on what Charlotte's talking about in terms of human truths, because there are human truths in the world and then there's human truths in a product context. In the context of Tyme Bank, I mean, one's relationship with money as a human truth is such a personal, intimate relationship. And when we look at the growth of Tyme Bank, something that's happening there in terms of the marketing, the product offering, how it's all coming together is just leading to this massive, massive growth. What are you sort of injecting into all your kind of communications at Tyme to be culturally relevant, socially relevant, and also kind of practice what you preach?
I think first it all had to do with the positioning of the bank from the get-go, in terms of recognizing that there was a segment or niche that was underserved or unbanked. And linking to what the guys are saying about looking internally and putting your own house in order. A lot of what we do is driven by our brand values. So yes, we are about driving access and financial inclusion for the low and middle income segments, but also we're about empowerment. We are not about talking down to our customers. So it's about simplicity, making banking less intimidating, but also speaking to our customers at their own level. So I think as we've gone on this journey, yes, we've had a lot of success in terms of our distribution footprint via Pick n Pay and Boxer, but I think specifically our communication has been centered around us putting our customers first and having those consistent conversations with our customers, whether it has to do with language. And what we've had to do in terms of adaptations is recognizing that it's not just English that's the dominant language that's going to help us achieve this objective, but injecting Zulu, injecting South Africanisms, colloquialisms, things that pull us as South Africans together. And I think working or delivering our communication in that way has actually made us be able to show up in a differentiated and even more authentic way, especially if what you're doing is you're consistently putting it against your values. So I think that's really what it's been. where people are finding a bank that's a little bit refreshing or different. Yes, our tech is innovative in terms of being able to sign up for an account in 5 minutes. That was revolutionary for the South African market. But I think just in terms of being consistent in our comms and even in our latest campaign, which again is a great link to culture, which is, the Skoko campaign that's centered around, your township legend, that guy that you look up to, who's known for doing the most, and the youngsters look up to him. But this guy is not just a guy, that people want to be like. He's actually cash clever and cash smart. And that's what we want to be as a bank, to help people to be cash clever.
Wanda, when Linda says that it seems so obvious, understand who people are, really connect with them, and then create communications that are going to resonate and land with them. Yet there is this massive disconnect, because if there wasn't that disconnect, Tyme wouldn't have a role to play in the market. They came in, they did something that connected to culture, connected to people on a meaningful level. I mean, even within the Telkom space, the innovations like sort of Telkom One and that, knowing that people are on digital, giving them strong digital offerings. It sounds easy when we speak about it, but there's structural and fundamental changes that have to happen. And sometimes it's harder if you're a big organization to move at the speed of culture. The CEOs are intimidated by Twitter. So how do you start sort of creating a culture of being innovative in a big machine like a Telkom?
Yeah, I mean, it really is a challenge, but I think it's about what Shaun indicated earlier. It's about looking at the full value chain. Telkom as a brand, I mean, we're a very old organization, yet last year we won the Generation Next Award, voted to by the youth. What we've been able to do over the years is basically augment and ensure that our products and services speak to the target market, which is the youth market that we want to appeal to. And that's been through different systemic works that we've gone through. When we entered the mobile space, we were very much about being a data-driven organization. Data very much something that drives the youth, what they do in their lifestyle. And you'll see within our communication campaigns since the launch of our mobile services, it's really been about giving access, democratizing access, giving you, social, being in that space, giving you access to the social platforms and communicating with those audiences. And true to what Shaun, I think Charlotte said, actually, it's about your call centers as well. It's not just one area, it's your social space. And what we've also managed to do, it's the people we hire in. The staff we've brought in a younger culture of staff. We've ensured that from a gender perspective, there's a great mix, which means that you're getting influences and collaboration from a wide range of different target segments that you're looking at. But very much like Linda said, it's the technology. We've gone out and we've made sure that we've launched innovative products like Telkom One that are particularly targeted at the youth. We want to give them content on the go as they want it. We also, as we understand the youth, they want it in bite-sized chunks. So we've made sure that those type of things are available. It's really keeping your ear on the ground. It's making sure that you are in touch with your consumers and you're talking to them, both your internal as well as your outside customers.
Let me bring in Shaun at this point. I mean, Shaun, it's one thing to say that you're going to do all of these things. It's another thing to then go out into market and actually make it happen and land that connection. Very often, one ends up saying to brands, you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter. The post after you is a post from Kim Kardashian is going to get 1 million likes. How are you going to compete with that? How do you kind of drive a human connection when you have the added lens of needing to sell something, but you also want to express your purpose, but you also have values, and then you're competing with Kim's selfie. So driving a human connection and cutting through the clutter and actually, being there and being present and being something that people want to engage with. I mean, it feels like somewhat of an insurmountable task because corporate and brands just come with so much red tape.
So I think, and I mean, this might sound like a massive cliche because I think outside of authenticity, this is the other word we've been hearing the past 2 years, is purpose, right? If I have to sit in one more briefing session around, can we have a purpose-driven campaign? But it's true. And it's specifically about leading with purpose. And it's not just about purpose, but leading with purpose. Leading being the kind of key word there. It's not just communicating purpose, it's leading. with this whole purpose movement that's happening now, I mean, many brands just kind of jump on this train, and they think purpose is about making an emotional TVC and maybe donating some money. Leading with purpose is different. Leading with purpose means that your brand does believe there's something more valuable than the bottom line. And the bottom line is pretty valuable. I mean, it's the reason we all have salaries. But a purpose is making sure that there's something more valuable, wanting to make a difference, wanting to contribute to society, and then living up to that. And that kind of then feeds through to marketing and advertising. So it really is about leading. It's not about just an emotional television commercial with huge production budgets. It's really about the company has something that they're looking to offer, that they're looking to contribute, and that feeds through. And I mean, we've mentioned this before, consumers aren't idiots. You can't, for example, tell them you care about climate change, but you've never done anything to relook plastic packaging or stuff like that. So it all comes back to that. Is the purpose that you have as a brand something that the entire brand, the entire company is living? Because that's what people connect with. People connect with that, what they have in common is that we share similar values and we share similar thinking. That's where people connect with. They don't necessarily connect with just as a very low price for a product. I mean, definitely price still plays a massive role. But if you want to build human connection and a lasting relationship, it's about aligning on that purpose.
Well, it's a brilliant time to bring in Charlotte because her most recent campaign is literally called Advice for Success. So Charlotte, take me inside. And I mean, 10 years ago, if we had to say a brand like Momentum, their sort of big campaign for the year is going to be called Advice for Success. And it's actually not going to be advice about which policy to choose, but it's going to be people speaking about broad advice in life and how to live your best life and be better and do better and read more and get work-life balance. I mean, you would have been laughed out the room 10 years ago because there was a strong product and service job to be done. And this is how we do it. And this is what we charge people every month. And this is the service. But take me inside the boardroom when you're saying, you know what, we're gonna do a campaign now where we're just gonna give people advice and we're gonna pay people to give people advice because that's what we want to be about. We want to be about really inspiring people. And if they use our product, great. And if they don't use our product, we need to work harder on our purpose.
I'm chuckling because you're saying would have been laughed out the boardroom. I think would have been kicked out of the boardroom 10 years ago. But it's just, that's one of the reasons why we as marketers love what we do, because we are fulfilled. Our cups are fulfilled or filled every day by what it is that we do. And yes, in this particular campaign, we looked at the human truth and we said, you know, people are really suffering in terms of their finances. They're losing jobs. They have to caretake the old, the young, all kinds of people in and around them. It's not just about black tax anymore. It's about looking after your cousin who was employed or your mom who was employed just last week and so forth. And when you look at the zeitgeist, you use that word in the beginning of your introduction. Globally speaking, mental health is on an increase and a rise. And people, although we're connecting using the beautiful technology that we get from Telkom and the likes, is that we are still lonely. And our self-esteem and what we were born to do, that confidence is waning. And we wanted to, as a brand, stick to what our core is, which is advice. Before the product, we were an advice business. We gave good advice so that people could propel themselves to their journey to success, whether it was emotional, spiritual, financial. We said we won't get into the spiritual component, but if we take care of your money, we will release you to think of all other aspects of your life. So we said, let's get back to that. And let's just, punt the value of advice. And that advice doesn't always need to come from Momentum. That's the truth. If you look at in particular African culture, you would sit by your grandfather or your grandmother and they would impart advice. When you think of stokvels, when you think of church groups or whatever the case is, advice comes in many forms. And that's why headlines like "Nobody is a Nobody" is what we started off with this particular campaign, or reminding people, you know what, you're bigger than what you think. Don't forget that. We wanted to give a different spin to advice and not necessarily punt financial advice, because we want to Shaun's point, lead with purpose. And it's quite ironic that you mentioned Kim Kardashian. Yes, she does have a number of followers, and I don't think we'll ever be able to trend like her. She's on the cover of Forbes, guys. But at the end of the day, she too, as a brand, is changing and becoming a purpose-led brand by studying to become a lawyer so she can pursue prison reform. So even celebrities, if we can just leave corporate for a moment, even celebrities understand how they need to reinvent themselves in agile ways and lead with purpose so that they are fulfilled as individuals, they're fulfilled as communities, and then they're fulfilled as corporates. So I wanted to end this off by reminding everybody, long time ago, before we were actually born, in wars, Coca-Cola put up their hand and they said, we're going to remind people of joy and celebrate the fact that they are resilient in the war. And they found purpose, although it was perhaps maybe seen as awkward. They were about selling drinks, and they said, beyond selling drinks during the war, how else can we lead with purpose? And they started to remind people during the war of joy, and they started to impact society beyond their product. So I think that's also what, inspired Momentum to say, beyond what you're good at, which is financial advice, what else can you do as people suffer with mental health or health? What else can you do as people are losing jobs? And your clients, by the way, when we say people, it's also our clients that are losing jobs. It's also our clients whose finances and investments are dissipating. But beyond that, what else can we do? And we said, what's common, whether you are Black, white, whether you are whatever your cultural or religious beliefs, is advice. And I think it's going to be with us for, time memorial. So it has been interesting, and there'll always be the stickers in corporate that want to sell product, and they should stay there. To Shaun's point, we are here and we earn salaries because we sell a value proposition, but there's nothing that says it can't be an and discussion.
Beautiful. We're giving advice this morning. We're live on the Red Zone with Arena Events and the Financial Mail. We're talking about the cross line of culture and brand communications. Picking up on what Charlotte said, there's a question coming through from Putela on the live chat. And I would imagine, Linda, all you want to do is go out and say, here's our new piece of comms this time. You should bank with us because we're going to give you the best value. It's the best possible rates. Literally, here's everyone else's rates, and look how we will beat them. You will not pay X amount every month for banking fees. It picks up on Putela's question because she says, how do you engage authentically within political correctness? Because you can't come out and say, we're better than everybody else because X, Y, and Z. We don't have competitive advertising like that in South Africa. It's frowned upon. It's just not what we do. We're quite polite with each other. So how do you balance political correctness and then authentic, meaningful campaigns? Because you want to come out and say, what's happening in this banking industry? The whole thing is inflated. Why are people getting charged this for this? Here's a value proposition that actually just genuinely gives people what they need and strips back the stuff that they don't need. But you can't really say that. So how do you toggle that line between being politically correct? Because in an SA context, people don't really admire that. They kind of say, well, which we're quite polite as a people.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, or maybe it sounds like you've been in some of our internal conversations when we're trying to look at content. But I think it goes back to what Shaun and Charlotte were saying, yes, purpose is a buzzword, but I think it's something that needs to be your guiding compass, right? As a company, but also as marketers, right? Because at the end of the day, we are custodians of the customer, right? That's what we're there to do, and that's who we need to stand up for when we're having those boardroom conversations. So absolutely correct. We have to walk the fine line in terms of competitive advertising, but also it is about being consistent about your messaging. And how you show up across your various elements. And I also think there's also another concept that we need to bring in the room, especially when we talk about being true to your purpose. And the guys are absolutely right. Consumers are more savvy. They are much more educated about, consumer rights. They make us as brands very visible when we don't live up to our promises. So it is around, creating that consistency, that trust, that, if we are wrong as a bank, or if we've done something, apologizing and doing it very quickly. And I'd like just to touch on two things, which I think Tyme did, which I think were probably difficult, because at the end of the day, we are a startup company. We don't have the same balance sheet or the history, or neither the capital support that the legacy banks had. But I think it spoke to being, to rather active listening and not being tone deaf, especially when it had to do with COVID times. And also reflecting back to ourselves around, okay, if we're a bank that's about empowerment, true inclusion, yes, we've got low rates. Yes, we've got great, what you call it, great interest rates in terms of our savings product. But we had to make some tough decisions to be able to be consistent with this purpose. So the first one was just as we were going into hard lockdown, where in recognizing that we need to grow digital adoption in that low and middle end in terms of increasing the usage of USSD, and we came up with the Send Money product. And yes, we could have charged a fee for that product when it launched. But if you looked at the dynamics in terms of people's behavior, the worries around safety, people not being able to see the loved ones, we waived the fee for that period. And it was really around telling people that you're sending more than just money during that time. And also, I think an even more difficult one for a young bank like us is, even in spite of the interest rates dropping during that time, we actually kept our savings interest rate the same, in being empathetic and recognizing that consumers are going through a hard time. So it really is about sometimes having to make those tough decisions as a brand to say, this is what we need to do. We're not in it for the short term. It's a long haul game.
Absolutely, and the best kind of game to play is a long haul game. I want to come to you quickly, Wanda. We're getting some comments in the live chat here. Everyone agrees that brands should lead with purpose. And I'm going to pick up on Nikki's question in the live chat in a second, because it's one thing for us to sit on this panel discussion and say, as a brand, we lead with purpose, so on and so forth. But there is still someone in a Telkom store in sort of an area in South Africa that's had a really bad day. A client's going to go in, they're going to be a little difficult. That person's just gotten bad news. They're going to have a negative experience, because at the end of the day, the person in the Telkom store is a person, and a person has come to them and is giving them negative energy. They're not in the best headspace. And then that person's going to leave and say, I watched this webcast and Telkom spoke about bleeding with purpose. And I went to the store last week and it was far, far from that. They were so rude to me. They were so mean. And it picks up on Nikki's question. Nikki says, I totally agree with you about brands leading with purpose. But how is this physically transforming on the ground level for consumers? How real is it at the point of engagement with your customers? And I guess the big question here is, how do you take what you do in the marketing boardroom and get it down to that consultant who is in that store?
It's really, I think Shaun and Charlotte really touched on it quite a little bit earlier. It's really about living your purpose even within the staff, within the things that you do with staff and with your staff. So it's looking at the initiatives that you take with your staff to understand where they are from an empathetic perspective, but also give a customer's perspective. Is to run them through, how would you feel? How do you, it's kind of, it's termed training, but sometimes it's more really of the softer skills that you run through. It's also about communicating where you want to go. A lot of the times as organizations, we kind of just tell the guys, we've got a target. We need to reach X, but you don't run them through what's the purpose? How does your behavior impact the target that we're trying to get through? And I think from a Telkom perspective, especially during the COVID times, it's about how do we link up together again? These video conferences, and most times we don't even have the video on, is sometimes not sufficient. So how do we drive the culture of what we want to do as Telkom within this virtual spacing? The reward system, it's putting those in and igniting that passion about the drive and the purpose that we're trying to achieve. One of the key elements for us is leaving no man behind. And that is about, and trying to make sure that everybody within the organization understands that. But yes, unfortunately, we do have bad days. We do interact with customers, but it's about what is the learning thereafter also. So we've had this scenario, we've impacted a customer in a certain way, and fortunately, they've come back to us and held us to our truth to say, this is what you said, but this has been my experience. How do we deal with that internally? How do we ensure that the behavior changes moving from there? And it's really about that accountability throughout the whole process.
Shaun, I don't know if it's because Wavemaker are very good digitally, that they know what to serve people, but consistently when I go onto LinkedIn, all I see is articles out of Wavemaker about how, they are inclusive and this is what we've done from a diversity perspective and this is how we've empowered the world during COVID. There seems to be a very strong focus on really living that purpose of the brand. But I mean, this can be hard. When you're in a difficult economic time, the first thing that people tend to do is go to survival mode. The first thing they don't do is say, you know what, today let's schedule a 3-hour session on purpose and how we're going to empower the people in the organization. The 3-hour session is, our product can't be sold because of certain restrictions. We need to do X, Y, and Z. We have a warehouse that's full of stuff. What do we do? How do we move? So talk to me, and it's picking up a little bit on what Linda was saying about playing a long game, because if you're playing a long game, you know that in the long run, these are the most important things. If you're living from sort of profit and loss statement to profit and loss statement, you're never going to find the time to actually really look at what we're doing and how we're steering this ship. So within an organization, where does that come from? Does it come from the leadership? Does it come from the people on the ground? But if someone is in an organization right now and they don't feel like the organization really cares about the world they live in because they're living from balance sheet to balance sheet, what is your advice to them, sort of quite poetically, around the importance of scheduling that time to discuss who we are and what we believe?
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, we've done a lot of introspection as Wavemaker, just internally around the Wavemaker brand, regardless of not necessarily what we do for our clients, but what we do for our own people, how we want our own brand to be reflected in the market. And for a brand such as Wavemaker, which is really, really all about the people, you can't afford not to take everyone's point of view into consideration and not really to place the interests of our people first. I mean, advertising is a hard game. You work hard, you work long hours. It can be mentally tough. It is not necessarily the easiest career to be in. People work hard. So we really took a step back to say, cool, COVID is happening. How do we want, what role do we want Wavemaker to play in people's lives during this specific tough space, but also beyond this? And that has kind of really allowed us to be a brand that cares about our people and a brand that cares about our clients. And I think that's what needs to happen is that yes, you would need it definitely needs to come from management as well to say we need to look at what we can do. Our people are important, but the everyday person in a company has a voice and can make that known. We talk about kind of the power of people when they come together. I think it's really just about communication. If a bunch of employees really need to make their voices heard, they should do that. And that's where it starts. If everyone remains quiet and no one takes that initiative, then there won't be any change. But it needs to be that internal drive to understand we need to do something different. We need to relook ourselves. And that's pretty much where we came from, is we just decided we can't do what we do without our people. So we really need to try and put them first. And that has really helped us a lot. It's helped us bringing in a lot of new business. It has helped us retain staff like no other agency has, because people don't necessarily want to leave a company that cares about them. And it has helped us keep our current clients happy, because if our people are happy, they keep our clients happy, and in the long run, it just works for everyone.
Charlotte, I want to come to you on this. I mean, one of the things I loved when we were chatting about sort of you being on this morning is one of the first things you asked was, okay, cool, I'm excited to be on and to chat, but how do I get my team involved, and how do I get them speaking about stuff, and how do I get them doing things and out there and writing articles and doing stuff like that? I mean, that's something that you can't really teach, right? That's a huge human factor that has to do with the culture of the organization. That's not like, we're going to do a team breakaway for one day of the year. And I'm just wondering, there isn't a science to that, because that's a human thing. We can't really quantify it and say X plus Y equals Z. But how do you go about approaching and building a strong culture in such an unpredictable time with so much financial pressure? Do you think a lot of brands have sort of lost the essence of teamwork? Because if the team is happy, Shaun's right, the output is happy, the marketing campaign is great. People don't mind working till 9, 10 o'clock at night because they feel like they're part of something. Do you think we've lost a little bit of that human factor?
I do think that we've lost a little bit of that because we're so bogged down by life. And on Twitter, there's this thing, are you living the soft life? And I was like, what is the soft life thing? Soft life is where you have it all. You've got the money, you've got the guy, the gal, the house on the hill. Most people, like 99% of the world, does not live the soft life, and we are naturally born to do humane things because we form part of humanity. However, that essence does get diluted when we are worrying, when we are deeply financially, depressed, when we are losing loved ones to COVID-19. There's only so much each and every one of us has in terms of our human capacity. So when it comes to lobbying for our team to get opportunities, when it comes to taking care of them at a human level, it might not be as vibrant as it was, let's say, 2 years ago, because we are dealing with a lot. And I think we need to be kind to ourselves and step in for each other where we feel that, okay, she's not the greatest, leader that she once was because of what she's going through. Then somebody else in the team steps up to take that. Leadership is not title-based. That's why it's called a team. Each and every person steps up to make sure that team culture continues to bubble and manifest. And I'm glad you brought that point up about me lobbying for my team, because I said, I'll do this if you allow my team to write articles and to come on, because I want the best for them. And I understand this thing about leaving legacy. Leaving legacy can be done in terms of your will and money. But leaving legacy is also, what are you imparting with the people who work in and around you? Because they are the marketers that are going to take whatever it is that you're doing, this purpose-driven life, this purpose-led marketing strategy, to the next realm. So you have to continuously impart in them, not just the technical marketing components, but the other levels of, let's say, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is, their self-esteem, their self-confidence. And these tools that we get in terms of these webinars that we have are so meaningful. And if they can see that it's not about hierarchy and it's just about giving people a chance, how much more wider and robust would the marketing community be? But I also want to bring in, and not just the soft side of marketing, the practical component of it, because I don't want people to leave this webinar and say, oh, it was a mushy session, and that's all it was. No, marketing actually may be a soft side, but there's always a commercial lens to what it is that we're doing all the time. And that's why I call it an intelligence. So when we talk about the practical component of marketing, whatever we do needs, we always need to, as marketing, find the creative or the distinct point of difference in what it is that we're communicating. And I remember with the same team that I was trying to lobby for opportunities, they were like, Momentum could never do Instagram TV. And I said, why not? I love a challenge. At the end of the day, yes, we haven't done it. We were born in 1966, but we're here now. It's 2021. And what are the new points of distinction or new communication channels that this team can communicate the same topics about women and money and men and money, or whatever it is that we are grappling with society? And I just want to leave that with everyone on the line, is that yes, we are looking at the softer side of marketing, but we should never forget the commercial lens that we need to apply marketing, the science with. And we should never hold back, because not all of us need to be Nando's and do Nando's the Nando's way of marketing. But we can still find a point of distinction to get what is true to our brand values, whether it is telecoms, whether it's money in the form of Tyme Bank, whatever it is. And I just wanted to leave that with you in terms of the topic of the team. It's the team that's going to take that message out there. It's the team that's going to find that point of distinction. It's the team that's going to lead those brand values. And yes, when South Africa holds us to our truth, and when we fail, let's just admit it, guys. For Pete's sake, let's just say, I am sorry, and then do something about it with the team.
I don't know if you've ever seen the Telkom Twitter account. They can be quite spicy as well, and sort of come back to people and say, yeah, like we're in this with you. We realize we made a mistake. It's actually amazing how that tonality is sort of come through. And you're right, not everybody has to be the Nando's, because not everybody has a product like that to sell. Some people have serious products. They have life insurance policies. They have very serious things that they need to sell, and they need to be seen in a different way. Wanda, I want to unpack the actual value proposition a little bit, and then there is how you market it. But in the instance of, say, for instance, a gaming initiative from Telkom is obviously a huge focus, or a Telkom One, which, suddenly people are able to consume SABC One on any digital device that they have, which is, this massive game changer for a lot of people. The idea of content on demand, all of that huge progression. I mean, it's a product innovation, but that too is born out of a strong team culture, right? Because no one wants to think out the box when they're in an environment that they feel is going to consistently criticize and stifle them.
Most definitely, most definitely. I mean, what our CEO is very known for saying, there's nothing wrong with failing, but fail fast. And I think that's really driven a lot of the culture within our organization. Specifically also within the area that I look after, it's very much an innovation area. We're about being given the space to kind of feel our way, look for opportunities and things that are going to be groundbreaking, or just, a break from the norm, but at the same time provide those opportunities that kind of leaves no man behind, that gives access to the common man, to a lot of the services that we currently have. And it's been quite, it's been that positive and that leadership that has allowed us to be able to be innovative. I mean, esports, for instance, you spoke about our gaming side of things. Our esports league is 12 years old. Probably many of us never even thought about esports 12 years ago, but for Telkom, it was something, a view into the future. And it's been one of those investments that we understand it's not something that is big now, but it's something that we feel that is going to grow and be with us for time to come. We're still not a profitable business, but it's definitely speaking to where developments are happening, where our economy is going, and understanding of how do we create also a cultural movement, create this interest, work together with the people so that we're there and are able to provide the services that are available. Telkom One is just another example. This is not our first time trying a video, and I think we learned from prior mistakes that we may have had, where it may have been a bit premature. But I think having learned and seen how other parties have gone, we've also understood and made sure that in the product, in the way that we built it, we spoke to the challenges that our communities are sitting with. I mean, Charlotte put it so nicely from a financial perspective, mental health, and all of those elements. For us, we needed to look at it and introspect where do our consumers see the challenge? People want to consume data. They want to watch their favorite program. They want their escapism, but at what cost? How do we make it affordable? How do we look at it from a means of make the content free, at least, which is one of the key elements that we've created within our space. Create and give access, but also look at the data component. How do we optimize the product so that people are not feeling like their data is really being charred away, but also maybe bundle the product with where you subscribe with some data, so you're not just paying for something and don't even get a chance to watch it. You get the opportunity to watch, but also look at payment terms. What is more comfortable? Daily, weekly, weekend, monthly type of subscriptions, because our economy is like that. People are sometimes living hand to mouth, but it doesn't mean that they don't want the good life, or the way, and something to just break away from their norms. So in building the product and building the proposition, those are really the key elements that we've looked at across all our products that we're bringing through to the market.
Linda, it's such a fundamental understanding of the consumer, of, where do they shop? How many children do they have? What schools do those kids go to? How do they engage with their parents? How do they engage with their family? How many family members are living at home? There's such a extensive amount that I think a lot of the time marketers don't know about the consumer, because it is so easy to get distracted by this big, sexy idea and operating from sort of your perspective and your lived experience. If you had to sort of comment on sort of the extent of research that you think brands are doing to understand their target audience, do you think research is perhaps somewhat of an underutilized channel of sort of creating effective marketing communications? Do we really know our audience?
Definitely. I do think it's got a very big role to play. And I was going to high five Charlotte there when she was talking about how marketing is not just about the fluff, but there's a commercial link to it, the science. And that's where research is actually. It's the consumer behavior, it's the science, it's the psychology. And it's about us as marketers, again, being custodians of that customer and speaking up for the customer in those boardrooms, but obviously showing the link to the commercial side of things. And also when it comes to communication, I think sometimes as marketers, even advertisers, we make the mistake of, making ads for ourselves, ads that we think my dad is going to like, my sister's going to like, or perhaps that's going to win an award. And that's not what it's about. It's really about an ad that ahead of its creation, we actually took time continuously, not once off, but continuously taking the time to talk to our customers, to observe them, to tap into the cultural dynamics or landscape, the active listening, the observation in terms of behavioral changes, but also those things that are affecting the customer journey as well. Because that's where you find those sweet spots in terms of those magic moments where you find the insight, but sometimes you also find the things that your customers are not telling you, the things that are unsaid, where you are able to actually unlock a need that hasn't been met yet. So definitely, insights and research are the way to go in terms of being able to drive that. We need to make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable. Is this product, piece of communication, how we're showing up in the stores, in our call center, everything that was spoken about earlier on, because it's not just about the customers, right? And I like the discussion around how we're carrying it through, because with us, for instance, our ambassadors in store, every single day they are interacting with customers. So there's a lot of rich data that comes from it. Our call center guys as well. And we do have those interactions with them, even at a very, very high level, our CEO, where he takes time to speak to the ambassadors to understand what is it that's coming up. But even for themselves, yes, some of them are Tyme customers, but what are the things that we are doing or not doing as a company? And I think because of our growth rate, you're quite right, we've grown, but we've also had to do an introspection to say, growing so fast in such a short space of time also requires us to upscale resourcing in line with that, right? Because we still want to be true to it. And we're trying to fix those areas in terms of making sure that we are able to deliver throughout the value chain.
The joys of being a startup. We have to start landing this conversation. We've been joined this morning by Wanda Mkhize, Executive Smart Home and Content at Telkom, Linda Appie, Head of Marketing at Tyme Bank, Shaun Frazao, Head of Digital and Content at Wavemaker SA, Charlotte Nsubuga-Mukasa, Head of Brand Marketing at Momentum. Quickly, some notes coming through on the live chat. Meliswa says, advice is everything. We all need expert advice on our journey. Thank you, Charlotte, for that. Tobeka saying, purpose marketing has to be more than what the brand says, but it also needs to reflect in what the brand does as well. Here's an interesting question that we can start to land it on, and we can make this somewhat of a discussion. If all forms of advertising, billboards, radio, TV, social media, was deactivated for 24 hours, how do you guys think that would influence decision-making and the spending patterns of people in general? I guess we're asking, does this stuff actually work? Shaun, as the guy that buys all of this, maybe you should tell us first.
I mean, so when you look at what impacts someone buying a product or service, advertising does play a role, but it's not the only thing. customer experience, word of mouth, price, all of these things, if you had to do a proper econometric model of what drives sales, will impact this. So if you take out advertising for 24 hours, you might have to take it out for a bit longer, because all of the media models will give you specific recency times that people will remember. So maybe like for a week or so, you have to take it off air for it to really make a difference. But then the impact will be based on customer experience, on price, on what my friends or my family say. Every time when we do research, and I mean, I'll vouch for Linda and Tyme there. I know they take their research serious, because our research team spends a lot of time doing research for Tyme. So every time we do our research, the number one thing that comes up as influencing someone's purchase decision or purchase behavior is recommendation. And whether that's professional or personal, and that recommendation is influenced by someone else's customer experience. So customer experience, I think, is probably one of the biggest drivers of decision making.
Yeah, that's the big one. Anyone else want to weigh in on that? If we pulled all the media, we pulled the ads, would the impact still be felt? Is the on-the-ground experience strong enough to stand true? And if not, how do we fix that?
I think Shaun's absolutely right. I mean, we don't have unlimited budgets as marketers, right? And that's why you have to make sure that you're having consistency across all areas of the value chain, and word of mouth is so powerful, and customer experience is so powerful. And I think the true test of a brand is when you're in the space where you're actually having people recommend your brand to others, but also have brand advocates who are actually able to speak up on your behalf. And I think that's what we need to aim for in terms of being able to do that long-term brand building, because that's also what drives trust in the long term.
Well, it's been fantastic spending this time with everyone this morning. We spoke about the cross-line of culture and brand communications. Maybe just some closing remarks from everyone, advice to their fellow marketing peers. In fact, advice for success perhaps to young marketing graduates or young people studying marketing or wanting to get into marketing. Because they'll teach you the 15 Ps and the 7 Qs, and there'll be a really nice marketing 2A textbook with a bit of a funnel and a paragraph about paid social media and the importance of great creativity. But when you actually get on the ground, when you're living in 2021, when you're turning on the news and seeing what you're seeing, when you're going onto Twitter and seeing what you're seeing, when you know the economy is what it is, what are the tools or the ways of thinking that are really going to enable you to add value to the organization that you market for, should your belief system align with theirs?
I'll start with the hashtag, Arye, hashtag advice for success. There's many things that I would give my younger marketing and advertising self, because I've been in both worlds. But I think for me, and it's the last question that provoked my response. If we had no Instagram, Twitter, where would we be as marketers? And I think it's the true test. And I would say we should go back as young and old marketers and ask ourselves, the practical solutions we're putting on the ground for our clients and our consumers, do they meet or address a consumer tension? Because if we are creating these value propositions, if we are creating these brand values, if we are creating these beautiful campaigns, these beautiful TVCs, or whatever it is that we are doing, and is eventually we get somebody to sell, because marketers, we can sell ice to Eskimos. We get somebody to buy what it is we are selling, and they buy it, but it doesn't address a consumer tension, a client tension, then we have failed. So I would say keep that at the back of your mind in everything you do, no matter whether you are in the top end of the marketing value chain or at the bottom. Ask yourself what it is I'm doing today. This email, this product, this solution, this customer journey, framework, the insights that I'm extracting to package to do something with it. does it address a tension? Because sometimes the consumer doesn't know that there is a tension, and that is our job to surface it and then to provide the solution. But sometimes the consumer does know what that tension is, and we need to make sure that we don't sell what it is that's not making a difference. Otherwise, we're just it's daylight robbery. We're just making money because we can. And I think we all got into the profession because we believe in the science, but we got into it because we want to make a societal impact with that science, and we want to be true and good human beings as we do that. So I would say just continuously ask yourself, what is this addressing that is known, and what is it addressing that is not known? And then be consistent. To Shaun's point, we always challenge ourselves at Momentum to say, your tagline says you are here for every journey to success. A journey is not a once-off, and a journey for some may lead them down different paths, but will you be there for them as they make mistakes, as they choose the wrong path, as they succeed in certain paths? Will you be there from cradle, to grave? Because we've got all the products from cradle to grave, from when you're born to when you're divorced, to when you get married, to when you die. We're there. And so we need to continuously ask ourselves as Momentum, are we really living that value proposition? And are we addressing a tension from birth to death? And if so, and if not, rather, then we need to look ourselves in the mirror and say, what are we going to do about it? And hopefully that's what gives us something to do every 30 days. Well, before we get our salary, we've got to say, fix it, then you get your paycheck. Fix it, then you get your paycheck. And sometimes it's not in the fixing, sometimes it's innovating what is already brilliant. And I end off this way by saying that creativity can be borrowed, guys, honestly and truly. Don't be afraid and don't be shy to, borrow with pride, and just make it true to your brand values, true what it is that you stand for as a brand. But more than anything else, make sure that it is practical.
Now that is definitely advice for success. Shaun?
If I can keep mine very basic, like the number one tip I still to this day give to every intern, every graduate walking into a strategy or marketing role is read as much as you can and know as much as you can. Brands aren't isolated from socioeconomic circumstances. And if you want to make intelligent, informed decisions, you need to know what's happening in the world's economy, in politics, in community. So read as much as you can. That's the best piece of advice I can give any graduate or intern starting in their career.
Wanda's going to say you must watch the news on Telkom 1, but over and above that as well, Wanda, how would you what would your advice be?
I think for me, I look at it through the lens. Marketing is a very broad spectrum. On my end, we focus particularly on the product and the product development side of things. And very true to what Charlotte had said, it's rather than building a product that will make you money, find a need that needs to be satisfied, understand what your customers, understand the people around you and what their experiences are, whether it's through reading or through research, as Shaun and Linda have referred to, but understand where consumers are going. But also be innovative. Think about what would you like? And I think this really touches on what Charlotte was saying. There's sometimes a need that people don't know that they have. So being able to reach in and be brave and be out there and think about those needs that you would want to have satisfied, and make sure that you speak out. I think the biggest thing, a lot of marketers or product developers are a bit too shy. And we don't know, as line managers, we don't know everything. We rely on the experiences of the people around us. And their knowledge and their ability to speak out. So don't be afraid. If it's wrong, it's wrong. It's a learning. But speak out. Make your voice heard. You are also a consumer, and we want to know what you want.
Linda, round us out.
Yeah, I think everything's been said, but I think for me it's really about the basics. So stay curious. whether it's to Wanda's point, not everybody knows everything. Your line manager won't always have the answers. So everyone around you and every experience is a learning opportunity. Also, I think sometimes the mistake graduates or interns make is, well, I've spent so much time at university. I can't be photocopying this. I can't be sent on this errand. I can't be doing this. I can't be doing that. You need to be humble. And, I'm inspired by stories of people who, have, offered themselves to say, look, here's my hand. I've got this qualification. I'm willing to work without a salary. I just need the experience and I want to learn. I think for me, that impresses me more than the paperwork that you have. Because for me, that says this is someone who's willing to get their hands dirty and who's willing to grow.
Linda's thrown forward to our next topic, which is going to be millennials in the workplace and why it's not all about the job title. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. This has been incredibly insightful, the cross line of culture and brand communications. Thank you so much to our panel. We heard that from Wanda, Linda, Shaun, and Charlotte. If you missed any of this, you can catch up on demand on the Arena Events platforms. It'll be on Business Live. It'll be on the Financial Mail, it'll be on the Redzone channel. So maybe if you are that student who's doing all the textbook stuff, this is a nice lens and layer to add to what it is to be a marketer and to be doing it well in 2021. Thank you so much to our panel. We'll see you again real soon. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.